so I didn't know what voice to use for my Lightlark recap voice. So I'm just gonna use my soap opera voice again. Enjoy. Last time on Lightlark, we met Isla and her star stick, which is not described, but is used for teleportation. Isla has lived all her life in a giant snow globe, being trained to be good at everything. Isla stopped by to visit her people before she headed straight to Lightlark for the Centennial, which seems to be some kind of competition, I don't know, we'll find out. And all the realms have stupid names. My tea is very warm. We're gonna read some more Lightlark. I just wanted to clear up one thing from the previous video that I was kind of pointing out, where this author is also a little bit pretentious, a little unnecessarily flowery, and I just wanted to clear up that I don't think that that is automatically bad. And you can be flowery and pretentious in your book if you want to. I'm just still a little bit traumatized from A Night in Its Moon, where that is all it was. Wall to wall that. Portals must be fairly common though, because she steps through a portal again, and not one that she created, from her island where her people live to Lightlark presumably, or wherever they're going to meet up with the other leaders.
Now you're thinking with portals.
I don't think yet that we have been told that Isla is a princess. If I was just reading this book organically, I would just think that she was a representative, like a trained up soldier who's being sent to do this thing. Open your eyes, a voice said, dark and striking as midnight. So the voice sounds like midnight. What does that sound like? Also, apparently using this portal is worse than using her star stick. I'm fine with people having adverse reactions to portaling, but I don't understand why the two portals are different. This is an odd way to describe it. The face belonging to the man looking down at her was amused. So the hottie that has steadied her as she came out of the portal is so tall that she has to tilt her head up, already giving romantic interest vibes. Now this is a preference. I don't like this. His hair spilled ink across his pale forehead. I would say his hair spilled like ink across his pale forehead. It just sounds odd. It sounds like his hair is covered in ink and is smearing it on his face to me. She's he has pale skin and black hair, and that means he's a nightshade. What are the features of each nation and how strong are they? Can there be no black people in the Nightshade Kingdom? I don't know. But she realizes that his name must be Grimshaw because she knows he's a Nightshade leader. He has to be called Grim, and also for some reason this portal comes out right next to a cliff, and she realized that she could have just walked out of the portal and off of the cliff, and I'm like, that's a really dumb place for your portal. Why don't you put that a little bit further inland?
Come with me and you'll be in a world of OSHA violations.
I don't understand this. Grim. What a terrible word, Isla thought. Worn with pride. What does that mean? So generally there are sort of two legs to your standard YA love triangle, and this guy seems to be the dark, broody leg. The dark, broody one usually gets the girl. No surprises there. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one horny right away. I did not think that in a young adult book it would be happening so soon, but I feel like we've earned it just from the Wildlings alone. Their whole society seems to be sex-based. He should be afraid. If a wildling wished, they could make a person fall off a cliff in pursuit of them. Their power to beguile was impossible to resist. So we have super sexiness powers. Apparently he's flirting with her. They barely said a couple words to each other and he smiled one time, and I guess that's what constitutes flirting when you're a teenager. Also, the nightshades, I keep wanting to call them nightlings, the nightshades can spin curses, which makes everyone suspicious that they made the curse in the first place. Let's pick the stereotypical dark broody ones and blame them for the curse. Okay. Look, leave the goth kids alone, okay? They're doing their best. So the hot guy moves her off of the portal because somebody else is portaling in. Again, this seems like a poor arrangement. You're right next to a cliff and crowds could form. You're gonna get one of these leaders killed and their realm disintegrated just because they fucking fall off after portaling to Lightlark. But anyway, the new person who comes in is, I hate to say it, our token. Because he, as far as I'm given to believe from spoilers, is the only black character having very dark shoulders and muscled arms. So apparently he's just like rocking a muscle shirt. Also, his eyebrows are larger than his eyes. His name is Azul, and he is the leader of the skylings. I don't know, if I was gonna be having all of these like weird different races, I guess they're different races, I would have a lot of fun with it. Like, I would make the skylings blue or something. Like, really go all out instead of being like, well, this guy's super pale with black hair, so he must be a nightshade. I'm gonna say nightling one of these times. And does this mean that all of the skylings are black? Maybe make like wildlings, maybe their hair is green or something. Do something cool. So we also learned that Azul and Grimm are both very old. They've been alive since the curse was cast. She has not. I'm curious why the author decided to make that choice. Like, why not have Isla be the same age as these people? Probably it's so that she can be a teenager and be relatable to the teenage audience, but like, I don't know, I think it would have been cooler if they were all very old. Or, honestly, just make them all young and be like, they take over rulership of their lands, you know, when their parents die, just like standard.
So I understand that it is the trend, it is a popular thing to have a very young female character falling in love with very old male characters who still look super young and hot. Like, as long as they look young and hot, it's fine that they're hundreds of years old. But I think it would have been so cool, and it would have resonated so much with young people today especially, if they all had just been the descendants of the people who caused the curse in the first place, just trying to figure all of this out. Because, like, yeah, that would be hugely resonant with young people trying to solve the problems that were left to you by the people who have come before, which is like what we are embroiled in right now as a society. That would have been so much cooler than just the standard, well, these people are very ancient, and here's a teenage girl who can fall in love with them, that's fine.
Also, not sure why, because they have control over Earth, wildlings can just like get gemstones, and so Isla is also wearing a lot of really pretty jewelry, like a big fat diamond ring. I have no idea why this is. I think maybe the author just thought it would be cool. We also find out that the gemstones are a reason that Isla's people have a steady access to hearts, you know, because they have to eat human hearts. So I'm still getting the vibe that wildlings are a different species from humans. So I'm very curious, like, where do the humans live? What do the humans do? Here's a chance where you could describe something a little bit more. Azul looked like he might object but didn't. She gave him her ring that he was ogling, and rather than that, you could have him like sputter or open his mouth and then close it again. Something a little bit more descriptive than he looked like he might object but didn't. Somebody else comes through the portal and fortunately doesn't bump into Azul and knock him off the cliff. One thing that this author is doing, which is a big hallmark of current YA trends, is like, we are blasting into this story at full speed. We are running face first into the plot. And as a result, we have no feel for Isla. So really, she can do anything. And I have to just believe that that's in character for her. Like, for example, the new girl who walked through the portal is trying to, like, get her goat and goad her into being, like, a vicious monster. And Isla's, like, realizes that and is like, I can never show that. But I'm like, I don't know Isla. Is that a risk? Does she have a temper? Is she very level-headed and so she knows, of course, she would never rise to the bait? We have no idea whether this situation is risky or not because we have no idea who Isla is or what she's like.
Go, girl, give us nothing.
This woman who came through, her name is Cleo, and I guess she's the oldest among them, even older than the king of Lightlark. And of course she just looks absolutely hot and young because nobody ages. Cleo is a moonling, and she's also very pale, but she's like so pale that she's kind of translucent, so I guess even paler than the nightshades. Same girl. Everybody's also really tall. Either Isla is very short or every one of the rulers is unusually tall, and should they be suspicious that she's not tall like them? And now we have starlings. Why do we have so many things related to nighttime? So we have moonlings, we have nightshades, and we have starlings. I might have been really tempted to combine some of these people, especially since it would be cool to have like several nations that don't exist anymore because of this whole curse situation, and when leaders die, their whole nation dies. But now we've got a girl from Starling who kind of sounds like she looks like Amaris. Very pale, very white, her hair is like silver. Everybody's so pale. There's like one brown person. Well, two. I guess Isla is sort of ambiguously bronze-ish. Mostly because she's an author self-insert. If you want to know my thoughts about self-insert characters, I have a whole video about it, talking about more of like the nuances of it and such. So go check that out. The new girl's name is Celeste, and she is like friendly to Isla instead of hostile. But Celeste is also new, so Isla is not the only one who is not super old here. Both of them are girls. Interesting. I've heard some of these descriptions. So this author sometimes is very flowery, or tries to be, and then she writes things like, Lightlark was a shining Cliffy Thing. And I thought when I heard these quotes just randomly online that it was going to be because this book was very voicey, and that Isla's voice was going to be very distinctive, the voice of someone who would call something a Cliffy Thing. But it's not. This is not her voice. This sticks out as a very awkward phrasing. It almost feels like the author meant to go back in and put something better here. Like sometimes you might be like writing along, you're like, I need a better description, and so you'll highlight it or write it in a different color of text so you know to come back and fix it. So she just described it as a Cliffy Thing, like come back and give this a better description later, and then she never did. I will say that while this author is giving us little chunks of info dumping, it's palatable because she's teasing it a little bit beforehand and then cutting it up and putting it in. Could it be more graceful? Yes, but this is definitely like a step up, a significant step up from the way it was handled in The Night and Its Moon. The most we're getting is like a paragraph at a time where it will explain something about the world, and then we'll get some more narrative and a little bit more dialogue. Thousands of years ago, the island was cut into several pieces so that each realm could claim a shard. So I guess Lightlark used to be like a whole continent, kind of, or maybe a really big island, and then each of the realms like split off of it. It has to be pretty big because I don't know how a whole like race could survive on like a little bitty piece of island. But then there's also a mainland where the Centennial is based. I thought, this is Lightlark the mainland? Also historically the home to Lightlark royalty, but is the mainland also Lightlark? Or is it just where everybody hangs out? I guess I'll find out. I'm just a little bit like confused reading this chunk. I know that some of this like bloodline and magical power stuff gets needlessly complicated. So they're talking about the ruler of Lightlark, the sunling ruler, and it says the last remaining origin, capital O origin, with blood from each of the 4 realms that still had presence on the island. He could wield each of their 4 Lightlark powers. Is Lightlark the magic system as well? Yeah, it's kind of confusing. I'm inclined to say that this is a little bit too much, and I wouldn't have had him have like multiple people's powers. I just am not convinced yet by what I've read, although this is only chapter 2, that this author can handle the complexities of all of this weird stuff that she's setting up. Apparently he's also a crabby pants. Everyone's a crabby pants, except for Celeste, who just seems to be like, well, actually she doesn't really have any personality yet. On Lightlark and beyond, love had a price. Falling deeply and truly in love meant forming a bond that gave a beloved complete access to one's abilities. They could do whatever they wish with it. Wield it, reject it, even steal it. Okay. I think I need to change my powers/abilities not explained to obtuse magic system or something like that. I guess I believe you that it does that, but why? Also, the wildlings should be safe because if they fall in love, they have to kill each other or something? One of them dies, I don't know. Okay, this world building is getting a little bit confusing. So, not only did people, like, when the curse happened, all the rulers, the current rulers died and their heirs took over. So I guess it's lucky that they all had heirs. Thank goodness for that. Imagine the child-free ruler who's just like, well, sucks to be me, I guess. Some people left Lightlark or the mainland or whatever the fuck. But some people stayed because it's the source of their magic, and so staying there makes you live longer. How long? Because the other people are also quite old. The other rulers are quite old. And they don't live on Lightlark. So how long do the people on Lightlark live? Even longer? And Celeste is the oldest of them, but she's not near the source of the power. So how much older are the people who are currently just living out their lives on the mainland? It feels needlessly complex. Like, it's complex but not deep. Does that make any sense? Randomly, I guess there was a war between Nightshade and Lightlark. We get one throwaway sentence about it. The war between Nightshade and Lightlark hadn't helped either. Cool. Our boy, Grim Daddy, over here is being like, well, nobody here likes me either. And I guess Nightshades are even more hated than the people who eat hearts. Wow, okay. So we're having a little bit of a problem that many authors run into, including in the previous book, but I'm noticing in this one too. There's very little dialogue so far. There'll be like a sentence that a character will be wanting a response to. Like a character will ask a question or say something that sort of warrants a response from the other character. And then there'll be, like in this case, 2 paragraphs of narrative or info dumping or something in between, and then we'll get the answer or the response. And that's like too much time. If characters are having a conversation, then you should keep the dialogue pieces fairly close to each other. Or if you're going to have a big old chunky chunk of narrative, you need to sort of resolve any back and forth that might have been happening, because otherwise the reader forgets what the question was or what the person said, and then we get to the response and we're like, wait, what was that a response to? And you have to read back and be like, oh, that's what they're responding to, because too much narrative passed in between. Words do take up space in the reader's mind. They do take up space on the page. They take up time in the reader's mind. So be careful how many big chunks of narrative you put into your dialogue. Isla keeps thinking about how she's here to play some sort of cunning game. She has a plan.
It's a cunning plan, actually. Of course it is.
But we never, know what it is, so we just keep hearing hints of, this was going to plan. She had a plan. Ooh, soon she would enact her plan. And it's like, that's great, but, I think it would be more fun if we had some idea of what it was. So the Sunling King lives in this golden palace with big old windows that let in the sunlight and fire. It's like what you would imagine if you heard these people are called sunlings. You would design this palace for them, probably. I wish that we would have some more out-of-the-box ideas. He can't be out to greet them or enjoy his beautiful palace right now because their curse is that they cannot go out in the sun anymore. It's been a long time. They've had time to adjust to their curses, so you'd think that the castle would be all shut up during the day and maybe opened up at night. Then everybody is led off to various parts of the castle. They're kept away from each other. But who figured out all of the original rules and the ritual for it? In the original rules, whatever the curse was, did it mention that they had to be kept separate from each other, or did somebody come up with that? Just curious. So the servant girl that is leading Isla is afraid of her, seems to think that Isla is just gonna eat her heart right here. Presumably, they have dealt with other wildlings in the past. So did the wildlings that came before Isla try to eat people? I'm curious how much is a stereotype and how much this servant has actually experienced. Isla is very insulted. My people aren't savages, they're not animals.
And you might be thinking, we're just trying to do something with stereotypes here. Stereotyping is bad, except for at the beginning of the book itself told us that part of the wildling curse is that they eat hearts. So what's true?
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
The servant is very vague. So Isla's room has a tree in it, which I'm assuming right now was grown by her predecessor. But also there's a balcony that like tips out over the sea, like just sticking out over the sea. And Isla asks, how sturdy is this? And the servant says, as sturdy as the king himself, I suppose. Thanks, cryptic servant. We keep hearing how the king is like very cautious that he never fall in love because that would give away multiple powers to people because he has multiple powers. But also, apparently he is like part of the power source of Lightlark, and if he is killed, the whole thing crumbles. So I don't know, does he not participate in the games, the curse breaking, whatever ritual that has to happen? Because I'm given to understand that it's dangerous, or it can be. So if I was them, I would be like, you are not allowed to participate, because if you die, we all die. This whole thing falls apart. The magic is gone. We're given what might be a clue, because Isla remarks on it in her mind. The servant goes to stoke up the fire even though it's already blazing away, and apparently the king has given orders that all of the fires have to remain burning. Now I'm wondering, is he like spying on them through the fires in the fireplaces or something cool like that?
Get used to disappointment.
You guys all know how I feel about adverbs. I don't think that they're evil, I think that they're useful, but we can eliminate them when they don't need to be there, and that can help make room for adverbs that do need to be there. This is one that doesn't need to be there. Isla immediately threw her arms around the starling ruler. Isla threw her arms around the starling ruler. Sentence is just as strong without it. You don't need the immediately because it's the next thing on the page that she's doing, so it's understood that she's doing it right away. But Celeste came to her door. She got there very quickly. Isla's just kind of been looking around her room, and then Celeste just shows up. So I guess they're not that far apart in the castle. And the girls know each other, and they're hugging and jumping in a tiny circle. Is this a Disney Channel movie? Is this like The Princess Diaries or something, where the girls are always squealing and hugging and jumping in circles? So part of Isla's plan, I guess, is to pretend that she didn't know Celeste, because actually, they're friends. Bum bum bum. Finally, we get confirmation that Isla is the princess, the queen, whatever, of the Wildlings. Celeste says, you're the ruler of your realm. Isla's star stick starts glowing when Celeste is around. Oh, we get a little bit of history of the star stick. Isla had found the star stick in her mother's things 5 years prior. And it's a starling relic, which is probably why it glows when Celeste is around, although I prefer the Lord of the Rings reason. The people in her realm, their curse causes them to die at 25. So I guess there's always going to be at least one new ruler, and it does seem like it would put these starlings at a significant disadvantage because multiple generations of their ruler will have gone by, meanwhile the other rulers just keep on living. If I was Celeste, I would be frustrated for that reason. Although I would love to see how their culture has developed because of it, and what sort of training would they put someone through, what is their history and how is it maintained to make sure that their ruler can handle going to the centennial and not getting killed. You would obviously want them as prepared as possible, but that's definitely going to be more difficult for a society that dies so young. And so I can only imagine that history and keepers of history are very important in their culture. I doubt that we're going to get any of this, but like, I'm just culture building in my head here because I love doing it. Oh dear. We have a main character who's like, yeah, your situation is bad, but mine's so much worse. I always love that when characters are like that. It says, for Celeste, breaking her curse was the difference between life or death, not only for her, but all of her people. For Isla, things were even more complicated. And like, I get it, if you fall in love, one or both of you dies, but you'd think they would work out some very practical breeding system that didn't involve love, because I don't know if you know this, but you can make babies if you don't love each other. So set something up. Also, most of their men have died, so you'd think their society would have developed to be a one man gets multiple sex partners kind of society, again, focusing on reproduction rather than romance. Why would we do that? We've only been at this for ages, centuries. If I was like rewriting this book, I think I would have made it be that either lots of other nations had already died out, so there were even more lings, out there in the world. Groundlings, like just make up some more. And then they've already died out. Ooh, that makes it even more intimidating and scary that we have to do this because other realms have already been wiped off the face of the map in this centennial. Or make the curse newer. So it makes sense why people haven't found out ways that their culture can develop to survive with their curses. Because this book is traveling at a breakneck pace, it doesn't slow down for moments that could be deeper and more character building. So Celeste basically showed up at the top of this page, and then we're getting to the end of the chapter on this page, and Celeste is leaving here. So we've had this much of Celeste being in her room, and it feels very abrupt to be like, hi, we're teammates, remember? We have to show the reader that we're on the same side. Okay, bye! And that's the end of the chapter. Nigel, where's my bookmark? It's all the way on the floor. Nigel has just been like, every time I've been sitting down to read, he doesn't just sit on my lap. He completely goes floppy, boneless cat on my lap. I gotta get up. I have to get my bookmark. Hello! I'm doing some filming today, so I figured I would get us into another chapter of Lightlark. This chapter, chapter 3, is called Blood. Our main character is eloquent as ever. As we start out, the sun had fallen. It was a yoki thing. Halfway consumed by the horizon. A yoki thing. All I can think of when she's standing out on the balcony and it says the gauzy white curtains blew back in the breeze. All I can think of is, it's curtains for you. Lacy, gently wafting curtains. She crept onto the balcony, the stone cold beneath her feet, period. Breathed in salt and brine, period. I think it's meaning to say that she breathed in the salt and the brine, but the way that it's on the page, it kind of sounds like her feet are breathing in the salt and brine. Okay, interesting. So she climbs up on the railing and she sits with her knees tucked up to her chest and she sings. Very random, but singing was a Wildling thing, a temptress thing. Just like their sisters, the sirens at sea. I have so many more questions, like how many other species are in this world? How many other sapient species? Do the sirens not count as their own kingdom? But also, like, singing is a Wildling thing? Does nobody else sing? Oh my goodness. Isla's voice was unnaturally good, like silk and velvet and deep dreams. She smiled to herself, always surprised by what came out of her mouth. Is she surprised that she's a good singer? Because it seemed like she knew she was a couple paragraphs ago. Now, of course, a character cannot just sing beautifully to the sea without a man around to hear her. There are other balconies, and there's a guy just like standing on another balcony clapping for her lengthy performance. What the heck is with these books and this gravity thing? Like, in the previous book, where they were, like, forced to obey gravity or obey the law of gravity, her arms pinwheeled at her sides, but it was no use. Gravity was too great. What? But of course, she's so surprised that this dude was listening to her sing, she fucking falls off the balcony. But she falls into the water and then immediately wakes back up on her balcony in a puddle of water. This author has a very choppy, sort of staccato style of writing. It's lots of short sentences, which is fine, but if you do that all the time, it becomes very boring for the reader's eyes, and I'm there. Like, she's mad because she's like, the guy must have saved me, even though, like, how? Maybe somebody down on the beach would have saved you? Do you just assume that he also jumped from his balcony, saved you, and then somehow put you back on your balcony? Is there like a trail of water coming from somewhere to show which direction he brought you in from? Making a lot of assumptions here. But she's also mad that whoever saved her put her back on her balcony and just left her there. And it's like, that's not the first thing I would be like thinking about. I wouldn't be like, why did he just leave me? I'd be like, how the fuck? Was I unconscious the whole time he was carrying me back up here? Or can he fly? Or like, I'd have more questions than just being like, why did he leave me here? And now we're finding out more about the prophecy, because she's like, this person saved me, which I think she's implying was like a huge risk to them, and no leader would want to risk themselves because that would mean that their kingdom would die. But like, it could have also just been some random servant. You don't know for sure that it was the dude on the balcony. But we're finding out a bit more about the prophecy, and every 100 years, for 100 days, the 6 realms were given a chance to save themselves. The prophecy to break the curse had 3 parts, which had been interpreted in several ways throughout the centuries. One was clear. For the curse to be eradicated, one of the 6 rulers had to die. Okay, she's not surprised that they saved her because it was a risk to their own life. She's surprised that they saved her because her dying could have broken the curse? I'm very confused by this prophecy and this competition, and like I thought the point was to not die, because if you died your whole realm would die, but now the point is that one of them needs to die. Like, I really want to understand why and how the deaths factor into this, and it's just weird so far. Whoever rescued her, she was unconscious on the floor long enough that it's like dinner time now. Don't really know how far from dinner time it was when she started singing, but I also feel like maybe she shouldn't have spent so much time fucking singing. But she just has to like finger comb her wet hair, put on the first dress that she finds, and just go. I'm sure she still looks amazing though. So of course the dress that she grabbed just was her sexiest dress, which she was supposed to save for later, but for some reason I guess was just like out in the open. Grim is amused, and then the other hot boy, Oro, king of Lightlark, ruler of the sunlings, is going to be introduced. We've got our light and our dark. I've heard that this author likes the word mean or meanly, and this is the first that I've noticed. Mean eyes that pinned her in place. I would not use mean. I would use cruel, cold, calculating, harsh. A stronger word than mean. But she's pretty sure that this guy was the guy who was watching her from the balcony, and therefore was the guy who saved her. Again, making a bit of a leap that just because he was watching her, he would have saved her. It could have been anybody, but okay, I might have to give us the bigger square for author assumes that we're stupid, because of course everyone's making fun of her. Why wouldn't they? Gotta have bullies. A swim in that sea at this hour? This is Cleo talking. She certainly is a wild pet. Even a moonling wouldn't think to do such a thing during the centennial. Only a fool would. And then the author, thinking that we're too stupid to pick up on the scorn. Wild, pet, fool. The moonling had managed to insert multiple jabs in just a few short sentences. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it to us. The square is, do you think your reader is dumb? But then Isla comes back with a jab that she wouldn't go swimming if she was a moonling during a full moon. The moonling's curse meant that every full moon, the sea claimed dozens of lives from their realm, drowning anyone who found themselves too close to the coast. Like, it's not even that the sea draws people. It'd be better if it was like, unless they tied themselves up, the sea would draw them to it and they would drown themselves. No, it's just like if you happen to be near the water during a full moon which is very easily predictable. So why would you ever be caught off guard and be killed by the moon? They're like, it made trade impossible, but it's like, just avoid the full moon and make people come to you or meet you part way or something. Like, this is the dumbest curse. Then dinner is served, and Isla is served a raw human heart on a plate, and I would love to really be brought into that moment. What did the heart look like? Like, I understand that this is a young adult book, but this is a young adult book, so you can definitely get a little bit more descriptive than you would in a middle grade book, and we're given nothing. So Isla literally just begins to eat the heart in front of everyone, and then Grim is like, comes to her rescue, and he's like, Isla, you're grossing everyone out. Especially the gay guy. I don't know why he like picks him out as the one who's most disgusted, but he's like, go eat your heart in your room. Somebody send that to her room. Again, everything about this book feels very truncated and abrupt. So they take the heart away, and then it's just, that's it. That's it for the dinner. It feels like some of these are half scenes. Here's this big dinner with all of these people. We could have conversations, we could have machinations. She could listen in or she could join in. We could see what everyone else is wearing, what they're doing. Like, I don't need a Night and Its Moon level, but like, it felt like this scene just ended. And again, I think that might come from this author being a middle grade author, although you can go in depth with middle grade books too, but the lack of depth that I would expect to see in something that was more of a young adult book, definitely feeling it. I do think that this author just needs to improve her skill levels, and it doesn't seem to me, from at least what we've heard, that she's written a ton of books, so I would just love to see her practice. But that's enough for today. Adam wants to get to work on Thanksgiving food. Thanksgiving's coming up. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you for the next chapter. He's laying. He's laying. I don't usually get to film when there are ferrets out. I figured you guys would appreciate seeing him. He's a good boy. Yes, he is. Boy who wants to bite me. Okay, hi to the people, Lan. Hi, people. Okay, bye, people. Other ferrets might come to visit us. Do not bite me. Today, in the presence of that silly boy, we're going to read the next chapter of, this is a book called Lightlark. Let's go. Chapter 4, Rules. Maybe we'll finally find out some more information about this weird, weird world and this weird, weird prophecy. And just like none of this makes fucking sense. Oh, apparently something I forgot to mention in the last chapter is when the curse started, her teachers, Poppy and whatever the other one's name was, their parents died to like do something. I didn't understand it. Like their parents died to save everyone somehow, but like the curse still happens, so it's confusing and I don't know if it will ever be explained. Poppy and Tara are her teachers. We're learning a bit more about our heroine's history now. We find out that she was not born with the Wildling powers. There's a ferret in my boot. Oh hey Jojo. Critters everywhere today. So yes, our main character is pretty special because she was born without powers. Uh-oh. Jojo, don't knock my picture down. Her mother broke the most important Wildling rule. She fell in love, then she failed to kill him. Okay, I thought that the curse meant that if you fell in love, the other person just dies. Not that it's just like a rule that you have to obey. Do I give it confusing plot already? Because this is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, and it's so confusing. I'll give it a little bit longer to make fucking sense, because we are not very far in the book. So apparently, because her mother broke the rule, her father had to murder her mother instead. After Isla was born, though, he conveniently waited until his baby was born, and their baby had no power. Again, because of the curse, for some reason, what the fuck? The rulers have to be magical because they imbue their lands with their magic. Sort of similar to what Layla does, although I don't know if they have to lay tits out on the grass. But because Isla has no powers, she has not been empowering her land, and her people are starting to get suspicious, although I would be suspicious because our ruler is kept away from us all in a snow globe on a tower. But no, I guess other reasons to be suspicious. I should have also put, I'm begging for the main character's death on the bingo card because like I'm already like, no, kill her. I don't care about her, I want to see what happens. So the first centennial was a bloodbath because I guess to break the curse, one ruler has to die and one realm has to die. Okay, draw lots, I don't know. The first centennial was a bloodbath. All the invited rulers set out to kill each other, and many of the islanders were caught in the crossfire. But the heads of the realm were too skilled, too ancient already. 100 days ended, with all of them alive and the curse intact. Convenient. Real fucking convenient. It was decided that future centennials would have order. It was decided that there would be rules. And what do you want to bet that the rules are stupid? I know a lot of people have said this book is nothing like the Hunger Games, like they were promised, but in that way it is a little bit in that pacing because we didn't actually get into the Hunger Games. Like, look at the Hunger Games again, reread it. How many chapters is it before we actually get into the games? There's so much preamble. In fact, I have the Hunger Games on my shelf. I'm gonna actually go look at it. I just happened to open to exactly the chapter. The games actually start at chapter 11. Quite a hefty hunk of book before the games actually start. I do think that Lightlark is going to take longer, but I do hope they eventually get to the part where they try to kill each other, because otherwise it's not Hunger Games-esque at all. Some people have said this is more like the Selection series, which I could see, which is more about Pretty Pretty Princess and like elimination in the Bachelor style. Oro stood on the steps in front of his golden throne instead of on it. You were expecting him to be standing on it?
We'll make good use of it.
Our observant Isla is like, he's not sitting on his throne, he's right next to it, but he's not sitting on it. And I know leaders just love to remind us of their power. Apparently Cleo, the moonling lady, has like a police state going on in her kingdom. The next thing she noticed were a half dozen chandeliers of fire. What is a chandelier of fire? What does that look like? Is it the chandelier? Is the chandelier made out of fire? Or are you just saying that there's chandeliers with candles on them, which are lit, which people would understand if you just said chandeliers? Like, can we get some description? I don't need a night in its moon levels here, but what am I picturing? This is the barest of bare bones. It feels so underwritten to me. This book is like, you do the work. You picture everything. I'll give you a few tiny details. There's some chandeliers of fire. Figure out what the fuck that means. But to me, again, it feels a little hand-holdy. Now, again, this is a book for younger readers, but it feels so hand-holdy. It's like, here's the stuff you're supposed to notice, because Isla notices it. But there's so little detail in this book that the reader can't help but notice any scrap you throw at us. Okay, that would have been fun to see. We're just told offhandedly that she's hungry because she didn't eat the heart, because she doesn't eat hearts. Unclear still if her people eat hearts and just she doesn't, because she doesn't have any powers, or that's made up and their people don't actually eat hearts. It's not explained. I hope it's eventually explained. She sneaked into the kitchen, just offhandedly we're told, and found a little bit of food, and I would have liked to follow her to the kitchen. I'm sitting here with fucking whiplash after reading A Night in Its Moon and being like, less, 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 less. Now I'm sitting here reading Lightlark going more, more, more. We run into Cleo again. This book is going out of its way to be like, Cleo is evil. We hate Cleo. Oro's gonna read everybody the rules. A ruler may not assassinate or attempt to assassinate another ruler until the 15th day. What happens if you disobey the rules but you break the curse? How are you punished? You broke the curse, didn't you? You just didn't follow the rules that these fuckers made up, those rules. She says that, Isla and Celeste, her buddy, plan to be off the island before the ball on the 15th day even took place. So I guess they're gonna hide as soon as the killing starts. Oro keeps reading, and then pairs are decided on the 25th day. A ruler may not assassinate their partner. This part is just like really weird. Why teams? Why any of this, but why teams specifically right now? So apparently the no killing each other part is supposed to be just a bunch of demonstrations to both feel out each other's weaknesses and also test worthiness of staying alive, which is that interests me way more. Like, I would love it if the demonstrations were all about everybody trying to prove that they are the ruler and nation that is most worthy to not die. That would be interesting. I don't think that's what we're gonna get. All rulers must attend and participate in every centennial event. To participate, no ruler can have an heir, which Isla's mother also disobeyed because she had an heir. She didn't have the heir during the centennial, but it's like, if Isla's mother had not been killed by her father, would then her mother be expected to kill Isla before she went to participate in the centennial? I have so many questions that are never going to be answered. Also, the rulers are invited to the centennial. So could a ruler just decide not to fucking go? This doesn't make any fucking sense. None of this, like, not every single thing in your fantasy book has to make sense, but it at least has to make internal sense. At least has to make sense for the world, but this world is so fucking confusing. Nothing makes sense. We have no basis. We have no rock on which to anchor our bonkers things. Like, when you are writing a fantasy, and I write fantasy, you need to have a basis, an internal logic, the rules of your world, so that when you say something that's more bonkers, you can be like, it's because of this thing that is like the basis for my world. Hunger Games, which isn't a fantasy, but Hunger Games can get a little bit bonkers sometimes. But like, we have started out with this very clear grounding of this system, of this class system, where the very wealthy here in the capital can just do things because they're so wealthy and so powerful and so technologically advanced. And we set that up early so we don't question it when they can do bonkers things. Like, and anything that happens in the games, really. We don't question it because we've already set up this understanding, and nothing within the games, at least in my opinion, breaks the world that the author has already set up. But this author has not set up a world that makes sense, so when she just keeps piling more bullshit onto it and never explaining how or why or when or who, this whole thing is just a convoluted mess. Young adults deserve internal logic in their fantasy books. There, I said it. We start to get the hints of how Isla's teachers were actually jailers who were torturing her, because apparently they used to cut her open again and again until she could not flinch or show pain. If you think about it, also horrifying implications. Dang it, I should have put horrifying implications on the bingo card. Why do I never think of these things until I'm actually reading? Here it is again. You have to cut open your palm and drip blood so that you could show off your powers, and like, why? Fantasy books, please stop with the cutting open of the palms thing. I am over it. Her people are supposed, their blood when it drips is supposed to produce flowers, so she's like sleight of hand got some flowers to like drop on the floor. Oh, that's a neat trick. Everybody's blood does something different according to their world and their powers, but Celeste's blood burst into a mess of sparks. Also, like, some of these would be so cool if the author would give us more than the barest bones description. Like, Oro's blood burned brightly before reaching the flames. What does that mean? Is his blood actually fire? Is the fire, like, around the outside of the blood, like drops of oil? I want to know. Give us some more visual details. She's still pretty sure that Oro was the one who saved her. Again, I have no idea why she's so certain it was him, except for that he was the last person she saw before she fell off the fucking balcony. But she's certain that he has a plan, and keeping her alive was part of the plan. And I'm just like, okay, sure. I'm sure you'll be right because you're the fucking main character, but why? Anyway, that's that chapter. I'm going to shut off my camera, put the ferrets away, and then we can probably read the next chapter. Okay, we're back. The ferrets are put away, but the cats are still out here doing crazy cat things. So the next chapter is called Grim. And at first I thought perhaps it was telling us that was going to be from Grimm's point of view, but no, it is still Isla's point of view. So she's just putting on her makeup. We're reminded again just how sexy she is, how naturally, flawlessly sexy. Yeah, she didn't get any cool Wildling abilities, but she did get the Wildling stereotypical sexiness. And also she has Knox's problem where all of her dresses are just too sexy. As if things couldn't get more stereotypical, everybody's supposed to wear the color of like their power or realm or whatever. So starlings wore silver, sunlings wore gold, skylings wore light blue, nightshades wore black, moonlings wore white. But because nature was multicolored, Isla was not bound to one shade. Oh my god. The fact that everybody has to wear certain colors, and the fact that our main character is just so special that she doesn't have to wear a single color. So everyone else is fucking color-coded for our convenience.
This is also the lazy man's way of being like, yeah, they have different cultures with different clothing. No, they don't. You don't have to describe any other styles or fashions or cuts or anything if you're just like, yeah, they all wear different colors from each other. That's culture, right?
I'll be real, reading this. I have done some critiques for people, many critiques throughout my life, and I've also judged some amateur writing competitions, so I've read a lot of amateur writing. And reading this, I'm like drawn back to that world. It feels like I'm reading some very amateur, one of their first tries. Like, if I was reading this for critique, I would be like, oh, well, this will have a few more edits, this will get better, but this is the published book. This is the finished version. So I can't just sit here and be like, oh, that's not a big deal, that'll get better, that'll get caught in future edits. Some authors can paint with words like a brilliant artist with a canvas. And when you're starting out, you gotta draw stick figures. And there's nothing wrong with starting out. Everybody starts somewhere, and stick figures are a way to start. When I started drawing, I traced coloring books. This is still in the stick figure phase of her author abilities, in my opinion, so it's really too bad that this is a published book. The starling servant girl comes in, and Isla like immediately just accosts her and says, "What is your name?" she asked. "My name," the girl said with such confusion Isla couldn't help but laugh. "I'm assuming you have one," she joked, hoping her smile made her seem good-natured, not mean. Doesn't that just sound like a teenager wrote it? Ah, yes, now we find out why she had the star stick. It was so that she could do this. Over time, she had learned to go undercover, to blend in with the crowd so seamlessly that no one could guess she didn't belong. So again, the star stick and everything about Isla's life is just constructed purely so that she knows how to do everything. It's like this author has never heard humans talk before. My bone, Ella finally said. It broke a while ago and never healed right. My bone? Nobody talks like that. And of course, moonlings who could control water also have healing powers, because this book, again, is very similar to A Night in Its Moon in that it does not have original thought. And of course, Ella mentions that she's almost 25, which means it wouldn't be worth it to heal her because her people die at 25. Again, these curses are very uneven. I really would have liked it if the curses were more related to the people and their cultures and their powers. The starlings just die at 25. Why? What does that have to do with their powers? Were they the most long-lived people before? It's very confusing, and I feel like this author just like rolled dice and picked out things. But Isla, being just the best, the sweetest, gives Ella a tub of healing paste that Isla just happened to have with her. But she's using this as a bargaining chip because she wants Ella to bring her real food. And as a plot point, I don't hate it, it's just the execution. And now she's off to the marketplace. I guess she can just go to the marketplace, so why doesn't she just buy her own food? But I guess if you can get food for free, you can get free food, you don't have to spend money on, I guess, bribe a servant with a healing potion that you just happen to have. But also, Ella hooked Isla up with a tailor, so now Isla can go solve the problem of too many sexy clothes. But oh no, she has been found by Grimm again. He just shows up places. He's got nothing else apparently to do. And he's hardcore creeping. Like, he talks to her and she turns around and he's like right the fuck there. We also have that stereotypical, usually romance trope of the girl being very small and the guy being very tall. So like he has to crane his neck to make eye contact with her. Apparently she was warned that, I almost called them darklings, nightshades were the most dangerous of all of the people. And yes, there was that war that we heard about, which I don't know why that's a plot point, but Light still won, even though Grimm was the best warrior. Well, the people who only live to 25 have a real challenge because they have to line it up perfectly, where the next person that's going into the centennial does not have an heir, but then is young enough that they can still have time to have one because they're still going to die at 25, which means they have to have an heir or their realm will die. It's stupid. Also, all of a sudden there's mention that there's a prize for winning the centennial. I thought the prize for winning the centennial was breaking the curse. And if you didn't break the curse, then, like, try again in 100 years. But I guess you can win even without breaking the curse, and there's a prize. Once again, she's like, what does he want? Like, she keeps asking in her head, like, what does Grimm want? What does he want? Come on, audience, come on, reader, wonder with me what Grimm is up to, and I cannot express to you how much I don't care. This author, like many young adult authors, has made the mistake of thinking that hotness and mysteriousness are enough to entice a reader. His hair keeps being compared to ink for some reason. This author definitely reads like she has an idea of how characters should work, but has not mastered creating people. Characters are people, they're human-esque, human-related, usually, with feelings and hang-ups and traumas, and this author is just not skilled enough to create people. She's created ideas of people, outlines of people. Middle grade is a lot about archetypes. It's a lot about getting the story moving and getting across simple ideas to younger children quickly. Younger children are more apt to easily slot themselves into a character, or be like, yes, that character's a bully, and be satisfied with that as an explanation. But as your reader gets older, that works less well. The older the reader, the more they are looking for depth of character. Not to say that middle graders can't want that, but they just don't need it as much. And again, I feel that this author is coming from being a middle grade author and doesn't know how to make that transition into something that is slightly more. Rulers also often had one additional ability, rare powers carried through the bloodlines, popping up generations later. They had nothing to do with the stars, moon, sun, nature, darkness, or sky. So basically it's like, also I could throw a brand new ability at you at any time, and it doesn't have to do with anything, and you just have to fucking deal with it. That's what it sounds like the author is saying to me. I'm laying the groundwork to be incredibly lazy with my magic system, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we are putting the bingo square, powers and abilities never explained. We're using that kind of as bad magic system right now. But also, I am very close to giving it confusing plot or no plot insight because nothing makes sense. Apparently those sudden weird abilities that have nothing to do with anything are called flares. But she thinks that he has one and it's for mind reading because he seems to like able to predict what she's thinking or going to say next. But honestly, it's because this girl has very shallow thoughts and it's like, I too would be able to predict what you're thinking. Well, Grimm is like, yes, I do have a flare, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. But it's not mind reading. So Grimm will have a sudden last minute power later on that we can look forward to. Apropos of nothing, Grimm asks her heart eater, which is his new nickname for her, which she doesn't seem to mind, can you have chocolate? And she's like, fuck yeah, bitches love chocolate.
What is that amazing smell? Chocolate.
It also mentions that because the island is surrounded in a storm, the villagers are all happy because they get 100 days of sunshine. So if they don't have sunshine, how are they growing this chocolate? Once again, we get the barest of bare bones descriptions. The city is supposed to be really diverse with buildings from all of the different realms. And each of the buildings gets like one description. And it's like, that's good enough for you. Okay, bye. Another stood as a redwood, smoke spilling from the chimney like a string of storm clouds. That's all you get. The next was held up on stilts. Another resembled a star roped down from the heavens, silver and glittering. All of these would be cool if you went a little bit more in depth about them, especially that last one. This author seems to like to give you a list of single sentence descriptions, and the last one will be the most interesting, and you're like, ooh, please go deeper. What does this look like and how does it work? And the author's like, LOL, no. Grimm has just decided they're going on a cute little date, I guess. And Isla's fine with it because somebody's gonna buy her chocolate, and bitches love chocolate. Was the author hungry when they wrote this section? Because like, we are getting the most hefty scene that we've gotten so far in this entire book. Every other scene felt really short and like just to the point, and then the scene ended. But now we just are having a lengthy scene about chocolate. I feel like maybe the author was hungry. The islanders' opinions and actions could shift the course of the centennial. Their help, or lack of it, could mean the difference between life and death. So I don't know if this is actually going to come up in the story, but we're being set up that the people who live on Lightlark have some effect on the centennial and the people within it. Yeah, and I guess the villagers come and watch all of the demonstrations, so okay, I guess. Why not? Why not? This book is just going to be me going, sure, why not? So he pulls out a bunch of money and plops it on the counter and is like, 2 of everything. Is the money the same everywhere? What's the currency? What's the exchange rate? Julian, stop thinking so much. We keep hearing about his bigness. He's just so large and tall and he barely fits at the table. And it's just like, I'm picturing him fully kitted out in the huge unrealistic armor with the enormous like pauldrons on his shoulders and everything. We're still going with the chocolate eating section, by the way. We have now purchased the chocolate and we are now eating the chocolate. And just like, why is this scene getting more love, care, and attention than any other scene we've had so far, and it is the least important? I am assuming, unless chocolate is going to play a huge role in winning the centennial. If it does, I will eat my words, and maybe eat some chocolate. Wow, Grimm is very forward, so he's already bumped her knee with his knee. We are like getting this ship going. So now he's like hand feeding her a piece of chocolate and she's going, well, I guess getting to know this other ruler would maybe be advantageous for me. There's a whole sequence where she won't try a candy that has chili powder in it and then he convinces her to try the candy. And it's like, what are we doing? I know I asked to see more things, and if we're supposed to ship this, I guess it's good that they're having a scene together, but it just seems so fucking out of nowhere, and just definitely makes me feel like the author was hungry and wanted to write a scene about chocolate. It also tells me that the ships are way more important to this author than anything else, than the plot, than the magic. She wants to get the romance going. Way more than she wants anything else to make sense or any of the other scenes to feel whole and thought out. Apparently nightshades can also just pass through objects, so that's a thing that we learned because the candy was too spicy, and so he literally just like went through the counter and back to get her some milk. Demon, she said meanly. Why do you love the word meanly, Alex? Are we 5? Also, she's dribbled milk down the front of her dress. So he's like, all right, we gotta go to the tailor now because you spilled milk all over yourself. Again, like a child, spilled milk all over herself, but also white liquid dribbling from her mouth. So I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. I'm settling on uncomfortable. Also, he can fucking turn invisible or teleport, unclear, but it seems like turn invisible because she's like, what would it be like having a power like invisibility? He could be in the dressing room with you, although he is very huge, so you have to try not to bump into him. But he can pass through objects as well, so he can turn invisible and he can turn like incorporeal. What's to stop this man from being an absolute 1000% total creeper? But he gave her chocolate, so okay. But she goes into the shop and she's delighted because there's all of the colors on display in the windows and she's allowed to wear any of the colors that she wants. We have a little nod to this being a fantasy world where the shop owner says that he only uses giant spider silk in his shop, which is very strong and doesn't stain. So Isla is telling this guy what kind of dress she wants. You know, she gives a list of colors that she likes, but then she says she wants it to be tight and long. Wasn't she trying to get dresses that were more practical than just like, I feel like she probably already has tight and long. So starlings have powers similar to like the unicorns in the My Little Pony series where they can just like magically, telekinetically move and float things. Grimm is in the shop. He just reappeared. Of course he is. He never left. He's invisible. She also asks for fighting clothes, which were what Tara wanted her to wear, which begs the question, why didn't Tara pack any fighting clothes? Once again, she wonders what Grimm's up to. She calls him a creep, but she doesn't actually mean it. So Grimm tells her that his demonstration is first, and for it, she will need a sword. So apparently she's going to be part of his demonstration, probably fighty fights, and then he fucking disappears again, although he can turn invisible, so he's probably just still right there, being a creep. And once we end the chapter with Isla once again being like, what is he up to? So, don't care. All right, I have to go because my memory card is almost out of memory, but we finished that chapter. The next chapter is chapter 6. It's called Bondbreaker, but let's go. I did not enjoy this chapter. How about you? I'll see you for the next one. Hello, and welcome back. I apologize if the lighting is kind of bad. We're on the sunrise side of the house, and it's winter, so that means that the sun is setting, and it's not even 5 yet. But it is chocolate orange season, so at least there's that. It's the day after Thanksgiving. I'm taking the day to just do what I want. I spent the whole first half of the day watching Star Trek. As punishment for me having had a pleasant morning and early afternoon, I'm gonna read some chapters of this book because I honestly want to get as far as I can. We're on chapter 6, which is called Bondbreaker, and it is an incredibly short chapter, so we're definitely going to get more than one chapter done today. Be prepared for me to be wearing this sweater for a while, friends. Speaking of sweaters, that reminds me, you can buy my merch, like this shirt that I just got, which is of our ferret Moraine with an X-Acto knife. Fun fact. Every ferret likes to collect things, and they all have their own different tastes in what they like to collect. Moraine likes weapons, so I had to do a little tribute to her with that shirt, which you can purchase on my Redbubble along with a bunch of other designs. I also have some of my designs on Teespring, which is linked below this video, but YouTube doesn't link up with Redbubble, so if you want all of my designs, head on over there. Just gotta get a little merch plug out of the way. Anyway, I'm gonna keep creeping the camera closer to me. I moved my light so it's in front of me for better lighting for you, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to read, so we'll see if I have to move it back. Okay, I'm very confused. Celeste is the one that she's friends with, right? So in the previous chapter, we left our main character in the market after Dark Broody Boy had disappeared again. But in this chapter it starts out with Isla threw the weapon at Celeste, who caught it in the air in her power's invisible grip. I forgot who Celeste was for a minute, and I was like, Isla's throwing a sword at her, and did I forget something from the last chapter? But no, this chapter just starts out with Isla throwing a sword at her friend. Of course, Isla's people also have a great appreciation for weapons. Like, her people are the cool kids, quite frankly.
And then there's Dauntless.
Isla, using her extreme detective skills, has figured out that Grimm wants to duel her as his first demonstration. We keep hearing about how untrustworthy Grimm is. He's dark, he's broody, he's a bad boy. Everybody thinks that Isla's a bad girl, so, like, shouldn't she be more inclined to think that he's not? Like, first of all, he hasn't done anything evil except be kind of broody and wear a lot of black. So he's a goth kid, all right? Apparently that war that happened, however many hundreds of years ago, is still on everybody's mind, though, or something. I don't know. I don't know why everybody thinks he's evil, because, like, all he's done is take her candy shopping, and she's still like, but he's bad news. Celeste is like, he's trying to use you, and Isla thinks, was that what their trip to the Agora had been? Just a strategy by the wicked Nightshade ruler? Of course it was. It would be foolish to believe it to be anything else. I didn't think she believed it to be anything else. What else did she think it was? Everything feels so shallow. I don't really know, like, what she feels or what she thinks. Celeste was right. Grimm was a distraction. You didn't seem overly distracted by him. Like, even books like this, where we get extra description of the hot, broody one, she doesn't seem especially distracted. Oh, we finally find out a little bit of Tara and Poppy's plan, which we might get to mark off the terrible plans bingo square. Let's find out. The first step in Tara and Poppy's elaborate plan was to seduce the king, steal his power by making him fall in love with her. Without this step, the rest of their strategy was useless. I mean, that seems like not step 1. That seems like step maybe 3 or 4. There's some steps involved with making somebody fall in love with you, I think. I'm pretty sure. But then Isla's like, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. Luckily, her friend had thought of another way for Isla to get everything she wanted. I'm not sure what Isla wants. She is a blank slate. We now learn about this thing called the bond breaker, after which the chapter was named, which seems to be a double-ended syringe which requires blood, but then it's the sort of relic that can break any curse. But it takes all your blood, and you need your blood to live. So the girls have decided that they can share because, I mean, the needle has 2 sides, so it seems like maybe it's implied that you're meant to, like, share. And if they both give blood, then it won't kill either of them, and they will break the curse. I don't know why they're the only ones to have found out about this in all this time. Also, apparently there's a double-ended syringe big enough to fit all of your lifeblood in it, hidden deep within the library at Lightlark. So these girls are like, yes, it will only break our 2 curses, but that's fine. And I'm inclined to agree with them because their curses are the worst. Everybody else, not struggling that hard. Also, Isla thinks that if they break the curse, she will get her powers, which is an interesting thing to think. Honestly, Isla and Celeste, who I know are supposed to be just friends, have more chemistry than Amaris and Nox in the previous book, and that's really sad. But Isla's just thinking about how when she's free of the curse, she'll just be able to explore the world with her friend, and it's like, oh, if only Amaris had any thoughts like that about the girl that she's supposed to be in love with. I will never stop ragging on that book. I'm still trying to understand how Lightlark works, but I guess it is just like one big island and a bunch of smaller islands, much like a video game map, honestly. She has to go to all of the libraries on Sun, Moon, Sky, Isle. She needs to blend in, so her dark hair would be the first giveaway to her identity. Sure, okay. This author be like, and she has magical hair dye that could color her hair. And I'm like, we have that in our world. Temporary hair dye. Whoa. And of course, Isla also loves to read because she's a fucking cliche. So the market, she's gone back down to the market. The market has transformed and the shops that are still open are literally open, like like the petals of a flower, which is a description that I came up with. On one trip to the skyling new land with her star stick, she had trailed a group of thieves, curious. She had watched from the shadows as they had used pins and curved needles to work their way into a lock. So she, of course, she can pick a lock. She learned lock picking from watching some guys that one time. Anyway, Isla's breaking into the tailor shop so she can get herself some disguises.
Listening back, this especially confuses me because the author went out of her way to tell us that Isla is allowed to wear any color as a wildling. So why couldn't she just get the disguises when she was here buying clothes earlier, completely legally? Because he wouldn't be suspicious because she's allowed to wear any color. Even when the book tries to have internal logic, it doesn't make sense.
She realizes that while there are outfits for all of the other people, there is no outfits for the sunlings. There's no gold outfits because remember, everyone except Isla is color-coded. Convenient if this is ever a movie, I guess. She's like, my master detective skills are kicking in again. This is a clue. I feel like Blue's Clues. Every time we're supposed to notice something, we have Isla ask, like, why not, in italics? Like, a clue. So this whole chapter, she just spent talking with her friend about their plans, and then she went and broke into a tailor shop and stole some of his things. For all we know, she was followed the entire time by Grimm because he can turn invisible, but who knows? I'm sure it'll be used later where it'll be like, Grimm had totally followed her that one time. She didn't know she was being followed because convenience. Anyway, I'm going to shut the camera off and go put the chickens away because it is now dark, and then we will come back and read some more.
It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, patrons. Patrons like Jessica, Caitlin, Ursula, KJ, LaFone, Amanda, Unicorn Jenny, Celia, Neon, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah.
Welcome to the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. Let's look at some of the challenges you'll face as a test participant. You may be required to perform simple tasks, such as locating an exit. These simple tasks may be supplemented with insurmountable obstacles.